stop what you're doing. Because if you're on SSI or SSDI, what I'm about to share could literally change your financial situation starting right now in 2026. You've probably heard the rumors, the whispers online, people saying stimulus checks got canceled, benefits are getting cut, and the government is pulling the rug out from under millions of Americans who depend on these programs to survive. But here's what nobody is telling you the full story about. There's an 8.8% COLA boost hitting SSI and SSDI recipients. And when you combine that with the state-level relief programs that are quietly rolling out across the country, we're talking about real money landing in your pocket. But, and this is a big but, not everyone is automatically getting everything they're entitled to. Some people are leaving hundreds, even thousands of dollars on the table simply because they don't know where to look or what to apply for. In this video, I'm breaking down everything. The truth about the canceled stimulus, exactly how much more money you could see with the 8.8% increase, and a state-by-state relief guide so you know precisely what's available where you live. Whether you're on SSI, SSDI, or supporting someone who is, this is the most important video you'll watch this year. Don't guess about your benefits. Get informed, and if you want to make sure more people in this community get the help they deserve, hit that like button right now and let's get this information out there. So let's just get right into it, because there is a lot happening right now in 2026 that directly affects anyone receiving SSI or SSDI benefits, and the confusion swirling around online is doing real damage to real people. People are panicking, people are making decisions based on half-truths and clickbait headlines, and honestly, that stops today. By the time you finish watching this video, you are going to know exactly where things stand, what you're entitled to, and how to make sure you're not leaving a single dollar on the table. Let's start with the question that brought a lot of you here in the first place. The stimulus. Is it canceled? Well, the honest answer is, it's complicated, and the full picture is a lot more nuanced than a simple yes or no. At the federal level, there is no new standalone stimulus check currently approved and ready to go out to SSI and SSDI recipients in 2026. The kind of direct payment we saw during the pandemic years, those one-time checks that showed up in bank accounts, that specific mechanism has not been reauthorized by Congress as a fresh round of payments. So in that sense, yes. If you were waiting on a brand new federal stimulus check in the same style as 2020 or 2021, that has not materialized. And the proposals that were floated in late 2025 did not make it through the legislative process intact. But here's where people are getting confused, and here's where it actually gets interesting for you. Just because a traditional stimulus check isn't coming doesn't mean money isn't moving. Because while Congress was busy arguing over whether to send out another round of direct payments, something else was quietly happening in the background. Something that, for many SSI and SSDI recipients, could actually put more money in your hands than a one-time stimulus check ever would. And that something is the 2026 cost of living adjustment, better known as the COLA. Now, if you've been following benefit news for any length of time, you know that COLA adjustments happen every year. The Social Security Administration looks at inflation data, specifically the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers, which is a mouthful, but essentially it measures how much everyday costs have gone up, and they use that data to calculate how much benefits need to increase to keep pace with the rising cost of living. It's designed to make sure that the purchasing power of your benefits doesn't erode over time just because groceries, rent, utilities, and everything else keeps getting more expensive. And for 2026, that adjustment came in at 8.8%. Let that sink in for a second. 8.8%. That is a historically significant number. To put it in perspective, in most years, COLA adjustments are somewhere between 2 and 4%. We saw elevated adjustments in 2022 and 2023 due to the inflation surge following the pandemic, but 8.8% is still extraordinarily high by historical standards. This tells you something very real about what's been happening with the cost of living in this country. Prices have been climbing hard, and the adjustment is reflecting that reality. So what does 8.8% actually mean in dollar terms? Let's walk through this so it's completely clear. For SSI recipients, the federal benefit rate before this adjustment was sitting around a certain baseline, and with an 8.8% increase applied, we're talking about a meaningful monthly bump that adds up significantly over the course of a year. For someone receiving the maximum federal SSI benefit, that increase alone could translate to somewhere in the range of $60 to $80 more per month. That might not sound enormous on its own, but multiply that by 12 months, and you're looking at an additional $700 to nearly $1,000 over the year compared to what you were receiving before. And for people living on fixed incomes where every single dollar matters, that is not a small thing. That is grocery runs, that is utility bills, that is medication copays, that is real breathing room. For SSDI recipients, the math works a little differently because SSDI benefits are calculated based on your individual earnings history. So the exact dollar increase varies from person to person. But across the board, that 8.8% increase applies to your benefit amount, regardless of what that number is. So if you're receiving a higher SSDI payment based on a longer work history, your dollar increase is going to be proportionally larger. And if you're on a lower benefit, you still get that same percentage boost applied to your amount. The key point is that every single person receiving SSI or SSDI sees this adjustment. It's not something you have to apply for. It's not something that gets means tested or taken away based on other factors. It is automatic, and it has already been factored into payments starting in January 2026. Now, there's one thing I want to flag here because it catches people off guard every single time. When your benefit amount goes up due to COLA, other things can shift too. If you're receiving SSI and you also receive other forms of assistance, things like SNAP benefits, Medicaid cost sharing, housing assistance, changes in your SSI amount can sometimes affect those other programs. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to lose those benefits, but it does mean you want to be aware, and if anything changes in your assistance from other programs, you want to reach out to the relevant agency to understand what happened and make sure everything is being calculated correctly. Knowledge is your protection here. Don't just assume everything automatically adjusts without any ripple effects. Stay informed and stay engaged with the agencies managing your benefits. All right, so we've covered the federal COLA picture. But now let's talk about something that honestly doesn't get nearly enough attention, and that's the state-level relief landscape in 2026. Because here is the truth that a lot of people simply do not know. Your federal benefits are just one piece of the puzzle. Depending on where you live, there may be significant additional money available to you through your state government, and a shocking number of eligible people never claim it simply because they didn't know it existed. States have been stepping up in a big way over the last couple of years, partly in response to ongoing economic pressures, and partly because federal inaction on certain relief measures has pushed states to fill the gaps themselves. And the result is a patchwork of programs, supplements, and one-time payments that vary dramatically depending on where you call home. Let's start on the West Coast. California, as it often does, has been particularly aggressive about supplementing federal benefits. The California State Supplemental Program adds to the federal SSI payment, and California is one of the states that has consistently increased its own supplement even in years when federal adjustments were modest. In 2026, California residents on SSI are seeing a combined federal and state benefit that is among the highest in the nation. On top of that, California has continued to fund its own relief initiatives through various state budget allocations, including energy assistance programs and renter relief programs that SSI and SSDI recipients may qualify for based on income thresholds. If you are in California and you haven't looked into what your state is specifically offering on top of your federal benefit, you could genuinely be missing out on hundreds of dollars in additional support. Moving up the coast, Washington State has expanded its Aged, Blind, or Disabled program, which provides additional cash assistance to low-income individuals in exactly those categories. Oregon similarly has its own supplemental programs, and both states have been actively funding outreach efforts to make sure eligible residents actually know these programs exist and how to access them. On the East Coast, New York has long had one of the more robust state supplement programs in the country. New York's supplement to SSI adds a meaningful amount on top of the federal benefit, and New York City residents may also have access to additional city-level assistance programs that layer on top of both the federal and state amounts. Navigating all of those layers can feel overwhelming, but the payoff for doing so can be substantial. New York also has strong Medicaid provisions that interact with SSI status in ways that provide additional healthcare cost protections. Massachusetts is another state worth highlighting. The state has consistently maintained a supplement to SSI, and Massachusetts has also been active in funding programs specifically targeting housing stability for benefit recipients, which matters enormously given the housing cost pressures across the Northeast. In the Midwest, Illinois, Michigan, and Minnesota all have varying levels of state supplements and additional assistance programs. Minnesota, in particular, has a relatively strong state support infrastructure for disability and aging populations, and the state has been expanding access to certain programs that SSI and SSDI recipients may qualify for. Down in the South, the picture is more uneven. Many southern states do not offer a state supplement to SSI, meaning residents in those states are working purely with the federal benefit amount. However, even in states without a formal supplement program, there are often other forms of state-funded assistance, whether through emergency housing funds, utility assistance, food programs, or healthcare cost support, that SSI and SSDI recipients can access. The important thing, if you are in one of these states, is to not assume that because there's no supplement, there's no additional help available. There often is. It just requires knowing where to look. Texas, for example, doesn't have a state SSI supplement, but does have various county and local assistance programs that can provide meaningful support. Florida is similar. No state supplement, but an array of programs at different levels that can help close gaps. In both states, community action agencies and nonprofit organizations often serve as critical connectors, helping people identify and access resources they didn't know existed. Speaking of which, let's talk about something that is genuinely underutilized and that I want to make sure every single person watching this knows about. Regardless of what state you're in, there is a network of benefits counselors and assistance programs specifically designed to help SSI and SSDI recipients understand and maximize their benefits. The Social Security Administration has partnered with organizations across the country to provide what's called work incentives planning and assistance. And even if work isn't your situation, these counselors can help you navigate the full landscape of what you're entitled to. Similarly, state health insurance assistance programs, known as SHIP, can help you navigate Medicare and Medicaid options if you're receiving SSDI and approaching or already in Medicare coverage. These services are free. They exist for exactly this purpose, and yet so many people never use them. There are also extra help programs, federally funded assistance with Medicare prescription drug costs, that many SSDI recipients qualify for and don't know about. If you are on Medicare Part D for your prescription coverage and you are not enrolled in extra help, you could be paying significantly more for your medications than you need to be. The income and resource limits for extra help are set in a way that a large number of SSDI recipients qualify, and the savings can be substantial. We're talking potentially thousands of dollars per year in prescription costs. Now let me shift gears and talk about something that's been creating a lot of anxiety in the benefit community, and that's the political and legislative environment in 2026. There have been ongoing debates in Congress about the long-term funding of Social Security, and some of those conversations have been frankly alarming to people who depend on these programs. So let me be straightforward with you about where things stand. Social Security's trust funds have been a subject of concern for years. The projected depletion dates for the OASI and DI trust funds have been discussed extensively, and various proposals have been floated about how to address the long-term funding gap. Some of those proposals have included benefit adjustments that would not be favorable to current recipients. However, and this is critically important, no legislation reducing current benefits has passed. The political reality is that cutting Social Security and SSI, SSDI benefits is extraordinarily politically difficult, and every proposal in that direction has faced massive opposition. What you should be doing is staying informed and, frankly, staying engaged. Advocacy organizations that represent SSI and SSDI recipients are actively monitoring legislative developments and providing updates. Following those organizations, whether it's the National Organization of Social Security Claimants Representatives, disability rights organizations, or senior advocacy groups, gives you a reliable stream of accurate information so you're not dependent on sensationalized headlines to understand what's actually happening with your benefits. The other thing I want to emphasize is this. If you are not already working with a benefits counselor or advocate and you are dealing with any complexity in your situation, whether that's working while on benefits, dealing with an overpayment notice, navigating a review, or trying to understand how a change in your life circumstances affects your benefits, get help. The rules around SSI and SSDI are genuinely complicated. There are work incentive programs like Ticket to Work, trial work periods, substantial gainful activity rules, and various exclusions and provisions that can make the difference between someone being able to improve their situation and someone getting blindsided by an unexpected benefit reduction. You don't have to navigate that alone, and you shouldn't try to. Let me also touch on something that's been coming up a lot in comments and questions. The relationship between SSI, SSDI, and the broader conversation about economic relief in 2026. The economic pressures that people on fixed incomes are feeling are real and they are serious. Inflation has been grinding away at purchasing power. Housing costs have gone up in most markets. Grocery prices are higher. Energy costs are higher. The 8.8% COLA is meaningful, but for a lot of people, it doesn't fully offset the cumulative impact of several years of elevated inflation. That's the honest truth, and it's why the state-level programs and supplemental assistance options we talked about matter so much. Every additional resource you can access is part of building a more stable foundation. What I want you to take away from everything we've covered today is this. The situation is not hopeless. It is not as dire as some of the most alarming headlines suggest, but it is also not without real challenges. You have federal benefits that have been adjusted upward in a meaningful way. You have state-level programs that may add significantly to what you're receiving depending on where you live. You have access to free counseling and assistance services that can help you make sure you're getting everything you're entitled to. And you have the ability to stay informed and engaged in a way that protects your interests as the legislative and policy landscape continues to evolve. The people who come out ahead in complicated benefit environments are not necessarily the ones who got the best luck. They're the ones who stayed informed, asked questions, sought out help, and didn't assume that what they were receiving was automatically everything they were entitled to. Be that person. Use the resources available to you, and share this video with someone in your life who needs to hear this information, because there are people right now who are stressed and confused and don't have to be. They just need the right information delivered in a way that actually makes sense. You've got this, and we're going to keep bringing you updates as things develop. Stay with us.